welcome to this week's Currents. Today is Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. Want to raise bilingual kids? First, let go of a common myth. Some parents worry that teaching their child multiple languages will set them back or confuse them. But that's a myth, says Farwa Hussein, a bilingual speech-language pathologist. When journalist Cons Preddy brought her 3 children to visit family in Argentina in 2022, her 4-year-old son did something surprising. He just started fluently speaking in Spanish with my family, with no hesitation, no mistakes, Preddy says. In their house, she speaks to her children in Spanish, and her husband speaks to them in English. But up until that point, her son never talked to me in Spanish. Suddenly, it clicked, she says. Raising bilingual kids can feel like a challenge, especially on top of so many other things parents worry about. But with consistency, exposure, and practice, it's possible to successfully teach your child 2 or more languages, says Liliana Diaz, a bilingual speech-language pathologist who is raising her 2 kids to speak Spanish and English. No expensive language lessons or language immersion school required. Children are like sponges, absorbing everything they're seeing and hearing, says Farwa Hussein. A bilingual speech-language pathologist who is raising her 3 children to speak Hindu, Urdu, and English. Whether you want your kids to learn your heritage language or the French you mastered in college, Diaz and Hussein offer expert parent-approved advice on how to cultivate a multilingual household. Let go of a common misconception. Some parents worry that teaching their child multiple languages will set them back or confuse them. But that's a myth, Hussein says. According to a 2013 article in the journal Learning Landscapes, kids who speak 2 languages are not more likely than kids who speak 1 language to have difficulties with language, to show delays in learning, or to be diagnosed with a language disorder. The article also notes that code mixing or using 2 languages in the same sentence is often misinterpreted as confusion. is actually a normal part of bilingual development, and even a sign of bilingual children's ingenuity, according to researchers. In fact, being bilingual can come with several benefits. Studies have shown it can improve cognitive function, help with multitasking, and boost academic achievement. Pick a language strategy for your family. Whatever language strategy you choose, stick with it, says Liana Diaz, a bilingual speech-language pathologist. Raising multilingual kids requires consistency. There are many effective ways to incorporate multiple languages with your kids at home. Pick an approach that works for your family, Diaz says. Our experts recommend a few techniques from the field of bilingual speech-language pathology. One parent, one language. Each caregiver speaks one language consistently with the child. For example, one parent speaks with the child in Mandarin, and the other speaks in Hindi, consistently at all times. Time and place. The family that decides that, say on Sundays at breakfast or when they are at grandma's house, they will speak the minority language. Minority language at home. Everybody will speak the minority language at home. And then as the child goes to school, they're exposed to the majority language. Mixed languages at home. Caregivers and kids all speak all languages simultaneously at home. It may sound confusing, but it works well in practice. Hussein says children are able to decipher very quickly what each language is. Whatever technique you decide on, stick with it, say our experts. That's what it takes to learn a language, Diaz says. Create an immersive language environment at home. There are many small, constructive ways to incorporate multiple languages in your day-to-day life. The exposure can add up according to our experts. Here are a few ideas. Do the activities you're doing with your kids in the second language. Whether that's listening to music in the car, watching cartoons on TV, going on play dates or reading, Diaz says. Aim for consistency, not perfection. Video call relatives. Being able to FaceTime a grandparent, sibling, or cousin and have that back and forth with them in another language is so important. Hussein says, you're building those same skills as if you were doing it in person. Celebrate cultural events. Providing children with the cultural context around their second language can make language learning more fun. Diaz makes a point to celebrate Dia de los Muertos with her 2 children, so they have a connection to their Mexican heritage. Language is culture, which is identity. Foster curiosity. Purdy says she and her husband, who is fluent in French, always play and experiment with language with the kids. The other day, they wanted to know how to say some words in French, and they were starting to pick up the similarities between Spanish and French. Embrace imperfection. There will be times when your child just wants to speak the dominant language or mix their dominant and non-dominant languages together, and that's okay, our experts say. Don't force it, Diaz says. If you want them to speak in a particular language at a moment, acknowledge what the child is saying first, then model and respond in that language. If your child is code mixing, don't try to correct them. Hussein says, instead, use it as an opportunity to engage. Diaz says she loves when her son tries to carry one language over to the other. Sometimes he'll say these mixed English-Spanish words. And I'm like, oh, that's a good one. I never thought of saying it that way. And have some patience. Purdy says sometimes her kids will tell her that they don't understand her when she's speaking to them in Spanish. I'm like, but you understand what I'm saying right now? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, this isn't Spanish. Eventually, your child will get it, even if they don't realize it. When an earthquake struck San Diego, these elephants formed an alert circle. Elephants at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park in Escondido, California, quickly formed an alert circle to protect their young following Monday's 5.2 magnitude earthquake. When a 5.2 magnitude earthquake hit Southern California on Monday, humans followed the usual drill: drop, cover, and hold on. But one herd of elephants at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park in Escondido, California, had their own plan. Circle up and stand together. Security footage from the park shows the moment clearly. One minute the elephants were basking in the sun, the next they were reacting as the ground began to shake. The three adult females scanned their surroundings and quickly band together, forming a tight circle around two 7-year-old calves named Zuli and Makaya. According to the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. Experts call this behavior an alert circle, a response matriarch elephants display when they receive a threat. Elephants are highly social. They take care of each other, says Joshua Plotnick, an associate professor of psychology at Hunter College in New York, who studies elephant behavior. Plotnick says this instinct to protect one another is at the core of the alert circle, a strategy for banding together. They bunch together, the adult on the outside facing out, and then they'll push the younger individuals into the middle, he says. Elephants can sense seismic vibrations through their feet and ears, Plotnick says, alerting them to potential danger. And earthquakes aren't the only thing they can detect. Something similar happened during the 2006 Boxing Day tsunami in Southeast Asia, he recalls. I've heard anecdotes of elephants responding prior to the large tsunami waves reaching the shores of Thailand. For instance, of elephants retreating up to higher ground with other elephants. These fast, coordinated responses reveal the complex social nature of elephants, Plotnick says. But he warns that elephant survival in today's world requires more than just instinct. There's still much we don't understand about how they interpret threats. Learning more, he says, is key to protecting these endangered animals. The Asian and African elephants are in imminent danger of going extinct, and it's crucially important that we continue to learn more about their behavior and cognition if we're going to come up with ways to protect them and conserve them in the wild, Plotnick says. States push Medicaid work rules, but few programs help enrollees find jobs. Congress could implement work requirements as part of revamping and downsizing Medicaid. For many years, Eric Wonderland's health issues made it hard to find stable employment. Struggling to manage depression and diabetes, Wonderland worked part-time, minimum wage retail jobs around Dayton, Ohio. Making so little that he said he sometimes had to choose between paying rent and buying food. But in 2018, the CareSource Medicaid health plan offered him help getting a job. It connected him to a life coach. Who helped him find full-time work with health benefits. Now he works for a nonprofit social service agency, a job he said has given him enough financial stability to plan a European vacation next year. I feel like a real person and I can go do things, said Wonderland, 42. I feel like I pulled myself out of that slump. Republicans in Congress and several states, including Ohio, Iowa, and Montana, are pushing to implement work requirements for non-disabled adults, arguing that a mandate would encourage enrollees to find jobs. And for Republicans, pushing to require Medicaid enrollees to work. Wonderland's story could be held up as evidence that government health coverage can help people find employment and ultimately reduce their need for public assistance. Yet his experience is rare. Medicaid efforts typically does not offer such help, and when states do try to help, such efforts are limited. And the opponents point out that most Medicaid recipients already have jobs and say that such a mandate would only kick eligible people off Medicaid rather than improving their economic prospects. Nearly 2/3 of Medicaid enrollees work, with most of the rest acting as caregivers, going to school, or unable to find a job due to a disability or illness. According to KFF, a health information nonprofit that includes KFF Health News, existing efforts to help Medicaid recipients get a job have seen limited success. Because there's not a lot of room to move the needle, said Ben Sommers, health professional. Ben Sommers, a professor of healthcare economics at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Most Medicaid enrollees already work, just not in jobs with health benefits, he said. The ongoing treatment that some folks make is that there are a lot of people freeloading in Medicaid. That's just not supported by the evidence. Using healthcare programs to encourage work. The GOP-controlled Congress could allow or require states to implement a Medicaid work requirement as part of revamping and downsizing Medicaid. The first Trump administration encouraged those work mandates, but many were struck down by federal judges who said they were illegal under federal law. Policy experts and state officials say more attention should be paid to investments that have helped people find better jobs. From personalized life coaching to, in some cases, health plans directly hiring enrollees. They argue that work requirements alone are not enough. The move to economic mobility requires a ladder, not a stick, said Farah Khan, a fellow with the Brookings Institution, a nonpartisan think tank. While Medicaid work requirements have been debated for decades, the issue has become more heated. As 40 states and Washington, D.C. have expanded Medicaid eligibility under the Affordable Care Act to the vast majority of low-income adults. More than 20 million adults have gained coverage as a result. But Republicans now are considering eliminating the billions in extra federal funding that helped states extend eligibility beyond groups, including many children, pregnant women, and disabled people. Only Georgia and Arkansas have implemented mandates that some Medicaid enrollees work, volunteer, or go to school. But a study Somers co-authored showed no evidence that work requirements in Arkansas program led to more people working, in part because most of those who could work already were. In Arkansas, more than 18,000 people lost coverage under the state's requirement. Before the policy was suspended by a federal judge in 2019 after less than a year. Those who lost their Medicaid health care reported being unaware or confused about how to report work hours. Since 2023, Arkansas has been giving Medicaid health plans financial incentives to help enrollees train for jobs, but so far few have taken advantage. Some plans, including Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shields, offer members $25 to $65 to complete a career readiness certificate. In 2024, some Arkansas health plans offered enrollees educational videos about topics including taxes and cryptocurrency. Health plans don't have an incentive to help someone find a better paying job, because that could mean losing a customer if they then make too much to qualify for Medicaid. Said Karen Van Zandt, a vice president of ClearLink Partners, a healthcare consulting company. Rather than offering incentives for providing job training, some states, such as California and Ohio, require the insurance companies that run Medicaid to help enrollees find work. In Montana, where some lawmakers are pushing to implement work requirements, a promising optional program nearly collapsed after state lawmakers required it to be outsourced to private contractors. Within the program's first 3 years, the state paired 32,000 Medicaid enrollees with existing federally funded job training programs. Most had higher wages a year after starting training, the state found. But enrollment has plummeted to just 11 people, according to the latest data provided by the state's Labor Department. Sarah Swanson, who leads the department, said several of the nonprofit contractors that ran the program shuttered. There was no real part in this for us to deliver direct services to the folks that walked through our door. She said the state hopes to revive job training by allowing the department to work alongside contractors to reach more people. The hunt for results. State officials say they don't have much data to track the effectiveness of existing job programs offered by Medicaid plans. Stephanie O'Grady, a spokesperson for the Ohio Department of Medicaid, said that the state does not track outcomes because the health plans are not employment agencies. Officials with CareSource, which operates Medicaid plans in multiple states, say it has about 2,300 Medicaid and ACA marketplace enrollees in its Job Connect program. About 1,400 in Ohio, 500 in Georgia, and 400 in Indiana. The program connects job seekers with a life coach who counsels them on skills such as showing up on time, dressing the part for interviews, and selling yourself during the interview, said Jesse Reed, CoSource's director of life services in Ohio. In 2013, about 800 people have found jobs through the program. According to Josh Boynton, a senior vice president at CareSource, the health plan itself has hired 29 Medicaid enrollees into customer service, pharmacy, and other positions. Nearly all full-time with benefits, he said. In 2022, California started offering non-traditional health benefits through Medicaid, including helping find jobs for enrollees experiencing homelessness or serious mental issues, or who are otherwise at risk of avoidable emergency room care. As of September, it had served nearly 280,000 enrollees, but the state doesn't have data on how many became employed. The University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, which is among the largest private employers in Pennsylvania, running both a sprawling hospital system and a Medicaid plan, has hired over 10,000 of its Medicaid enrollees since 2021 through its training and support services. Among other jobs, they took positions as warehouse workers, customer service representatives, and medical assistants. The vast majority of left low-paying jobs for full-time positions with health benefits, said Dan Lavelle, a senior director of UPMC Health Plan Center for Social Impact. Our Pathways to Work program is a model for the nation, he said. Josh Archambault, a senior fellow with the conservative Cicero Institute, said the Medicaid should focus on improving the financial health of those enrolled. While the first Trump administration approved Medicaid work requirements in 13 states, the Biden administration, or federal judges, blocked all except Georgia's. I don't think states have been given ample chance to experiment and try to figure out what works, Archambault said. Higher education war heats up as Trump threatens Harvard's tax-exempt status. President Trump threatened on social media to revoke the tax-exempt status of Harvard University. President Trump today threatened on social media to revoke the tax-exempt status of Harvard University. Perhaps Harvard should lose its tax-exempt status and be taxed as a political entity if it keeps pushing political, ideological, and terrorist-inspired supporting sickness, Trump said in a social post. His comments marked the latest volley in a battle between the Trump administration and the wealthiest college in the world, a battle that heated up last Friday when the administration sent Harvard a list of demands. It must be met or risk of losing some $9 billion in federal funding. Harvard's president yesterday rejected the administration's demands, saying they were illegal and intolerable attempt to dictate what private universities should teach, can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. The administration responded within hours, freezing more than $2.2 billion in grants and multi-year contracts to Harvard, much of it intended for research on a wide range of subjects. Many higher education leaders welcomed Harvard's stance, saying the school was uniquely positioned to take the lead. Harvard really had no choice, given the extent of the demands the Trump administration had made upon it, said Michael Dorf, a law professor at Cornell University. Ted Mitchell, the president of the American Council on Education, an organization that represents more than 1,600 colleges and universities, said that by taking the lead, Harvard paved the way for other institutions to oppose the administration's demands. If Harvard hadn't stood up, Mitchell said, it would have sent a chill across higher education that would have really hampered the ability of other institutions to define for themselves where that red line is. A battle for ideology. The administration maintains that its attacks on Harvard and dozens of other universities were under investigation by the U.S. Department for allegedly failing to protect Jewish students. The disruption of learning that has plagued campuses in recent years is unacceptable. The administration Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism said in a statement yesterday. It is time for elite universities to take the problem seriously and commit meaningful change if they wish to continue receiving taxpayer support. But President Trump has also repeatedly said that he wants to curb what he views as far-left bias in academia. We're going to choke off the money to schools that aid the Marxist assault on our American heritage and on Western civilization itself, Trump said in a speech in Florida in 2023. The days of subsidizing communist indoctrination in our colleges will soon be over. And in the last month, the administration has canceled or frozen about $11 billion at a handful of institutions. Former President Barack Obama, in a statement today, praised Harvard's response and called the administration's moves an unlawful and ham-handed attempt to stifle academic freedom. The threat of removing tax exemption, while the loss of grants and contracts for research in a wide range of fields is alarming. Many college leaders have said they were deeply worried about the administration's might move beyond that, notably by threatening their tax-exempt status. Trump's comments today confirmed those fears. The catalog of horrors is a thick one, Mitchell said. There are plenty of things that the administration can seek. To do that would throw institutions off kilter. And tax-exempt organizations, they are given nonprofit status along with charities. Religious institutions and political organizations. Some elite institutions have amassed huge endowments. Harvard's is the largest, at about $50 million. Republicans have long sought to curb the tax exemptions in higher education. In 2017, Congress passed a 1.4% tax. On university endowments, which affected many of the nation's elite institutions. Mitchell and the other experts said that they believe some of the administration's demand and its threat to pulling funding are unlawful. Already, legal challenges have begun, including the lawsuit filed last week by Harvard faculty, along with the American Association of University Professors. Challenging the administration's demands for changes in order to maintain funding levels. Among those demands are who are supportive of terrorism or anti-Semitism and ensure viewpoint diversity in its hiring. Drowning in tariffs, American businesses try to stay afloat. Shrimp caught off Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, in a basket, waiting to be weighed. It's pretty rare for one person to do one thing that affects nearly every business in the United States. But that's the power of the presidency and the new tariffs that took effect this week. Over the last few days, as the tariffs have gone up and down, NPR has been talking to Americans who run different kinds of businesses. Over the last few weeks, as the new tariffs have gone up and down, NPR has been talking to Americans who run different kinds of businesses. Even though their companies don't have much in common, all of them are doing the same thing right now, trying to figure out what is going on and how to respond. Trump's tariff plans affect nearly every company in America. We'll hear from a few business owners about what it means for them.